Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and tonight I'm here with the Wells Audio Milo headphone amp. This is just a first impressions video. I'm not going to get too deep into the sound. I've had this about 6 days now, and I really need more time with it. I'd probably put about 15 hours in on this amp listening to it so far. And to really dig deep into the sound and give you my opinions on that, I'd like to put probably another 30-40 hours on it. So tonight I'm going to get a little bit into the sound, but I'm mostly just going to talk about the looks and the features and what the amp has to offer. So the first thing that I noticed when I received this amp, which is on loan to me from Wells Audio for a review. First thing is it came in a pretty large box, and packed around the box was this foam packing, which I'm very impressed with. I've never seen foam packing like this. I mean, it's like 2 to 3 inches thick all the way around the amp. Anyway, so the amp arrived in very good condition. As far as the amp itself, the first thing I noticed is it's kind of an unusual look. It has a small footprint, and right now you can see the amp right behind me here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'm going to switch over to a close-up view of the amp and show you the front, the back, all that, and then come back and tell you about, give you my first impressions on the sound. So anyway, like I was saying, the amp has a very small footprint, but it's quite tall at 9 5/8 inches tall, so unlike most amps are, low and wide, or my Audio GD is about 6 times the footprint, but about 1/3 the height. Anyway, I really like it though. I think it's very cool. It's kind of unique looking with the cooling fins on it, and I like the way it looks. As far as build quality, the only issue I had is when it came to me, it had a screw missing in the front. I don't know if you can see it here. In the close-up views, you'll be able to see it. Had one screw missing on the front plate, and this wasn't a new unit. This was a demo unit, and I think it's been out to at least a few people for reviews before me. So, I mean, somewhere along the line a screw fell out, and maybe someone opened up the front of it and didn't put a screw back in. So can't really blame that on Wells. I'm sure if this was a new unit, they would have made sure it was in perfect condition before they sent it to me. As far as the headphone amp, it has one set of single-ended RCA inputs on the back. It is not a balanced amp. It is a single-ended design, and I'm going to very briefly give you my opinion on that. As far as a lot of people think that a headphone amp has to be balanced to be high quality, and I think they base that on the fact that if they have a balanced amp, it sounds better out of the balanced output than the single-ended output, which is true and almost always the case. If an amp is designed as balanced, it's almost always going to sound better from the balanced output, because most balanced amps double the voltage on the balanced output, which gives you 4 times the wattage, and with the extra power, it's almost always going to sound better. That being said, I believe that a single-ended output or a single-ended headphone amp can be designed to sound just as good as any balanced amp. So I don't really think that's an issue. It's up to the individual person, but there's, like everything else in the audio world, everyone has their own opinion on it. So anyway, on the front it has a standard 1/4 inch headphone output and a 4-pin XLR output. And like I said, it is a single-ended design, but they did put the 4-pin XLR headphone output as a convenience, so if that's what kind of cable you have, you don't have to switch cables on your headphones. You can use the XLR output and or the 1/4 inch. The one advantage to this is being single-ended output. Both outputs are going to sound exactly the same. So you don't have to go and spend $100 up to several $100 on a cable with a 4-pin XLR to get the best sound out of your headphones. You can use your standard 1/4 inch and get the exact same sound with this amp. The amp itself, it runs warm but not hot. I have a infrared heat gun that I use to measure equipment with, and I measured 104 degrees on the cooling fins after it had been running a couple hours and listening to headphones, which was about 34 degrees warmer than the room temperature at about 70. So it's probably about the same as my Audio GD Master 9. Runs about 35 degrees above room temperature, but never gets really hot. It does need a little bit of breathing room around it. The volume knob on it, and I will explain this a little further in the close-up view of this. It has a upgrade volume, which is a 48-step resistor ladder volume control, and it's a non-linear increase on it. Instead of just what it does, instead of each notch being the same amount of increase, when you start out in the beginning, each step is going to be a very small amount, and then gradually each step gets a little larger when you get towards the end. Once you get up to about 3 o'clock on the volume knob, then each step is a large increase in power. The reason for this is so it works well with inefficient headphones as well as efficient headphones that don't need much power. That way you have more volume control in the lower ranges when you're using a more efficient headphone. So I'm going to switch over now to the close-up view, and I will be back and talk more about get into the sound and my first impressions of the sound quality of this amp. So I will be back in a minute. Hi everyone, you are looking at the Wells Audio Milo headphone amp. This is the lowest priced of the 4 headphone amps offered by Wells Audio. As you can see, it is sort of a unique design. It has a small footprint, but is quite tall. The overall dimensions are 8 inches wide, including the cooling fins and the acrylic feet on it. And it is 7.5 inches deep, which includes the volume knob and the outputs on the back. The box itself is 6 inches square, and the overall height is 9 5/8 inches tall. According to my kitchen scale, it weighs in at 7 pounds and 2 ounces. As you can see on the front, we have the volume control, a 4-pin XLR headphone output, a 1/4 inch headphone output. We've got our power switch down at the bottom, and the volume knob, which is actually quite substantial. It's a very solid feeling volume knob. I'll go a little bit more into that in a second. On the back you have one set of RCA single-ended inputs and space for optional balanced inputs, and you've got your 120 volt AC input on the back. The volume control on this is actually an upgrade. The base price on this unit is $1,699, and it normally comes with a potentiometer type of volume control. This has what's called the Cosmo upgrade, and it is a resistor ladder volume control, and it also has the Vichy resistor option, and which brings the total price of this unit, retail price would be $22.49 the way it sits. Something I wanted to show you, I hadn't really noticed this in pictures I've seen on the internet of this, that the front of it is actually a dark tinted sheet of acrylic that you can see through, and when the lighting is right you can see the inside of the amp, which I think is a very cool feature. So if I turn off this light and shine a light in the top of it through the vents, you can see the inside of the amp, which was pretty impressive in my opinion. It's a very cool feature. If I get the light right here and get it the right angle, you can see the size of this volume control on the inside. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because this is something I did not know. I did not know it had this clear acrylic front on it. Also, when it's plugged in and running, there's a couple of LED lights in there that dimly light it. Not enough to be obnoxious, but in a dark room it looks very cool. So anyway, I'll get back to my first impressions on the Wells Audio Milo. So now I want to talk about the sound quality of this amp. And the first thing I want to do is tell you what equipment I used in evaluating the headphone amp. And to start with, my source is a Cambridge Audio 540C CD player, and I'm using it as a transport only, running digital signal into a benchmark media DAC1. And then from there into the Milo, I've also used a shit Loki in between the DAC1 and the Milo to check to see how the Milo reacts to tone adjustments. A good test of an amp is giving it some bass boost and seeing how the amp handles that. And I can tell you right now, the Milo will never run out of power for any headphones. So anyway, headphone-wise, I'm used 7 different headphones, ranging from the $99 Grotto SR80E all the way up to the $3,500 Kennerton Thror, Kennerton's flagship headphone. Extremely detailed headphone and will reveal any flaws that an amp could possibly have. So it's great for evaluating. Anyway, when I first started listening to the Milo, and like I said, I've probably got about 15 hours in on it now, the first thing that jumped out at me was it just has, I guess the easiest way to describe it is I was writing down notes while I was listening, and I came up with a list of words describing the sound, and I'll read you some of those words. Musical, natural, smooth, realistic, organic, flowing, lifelike, rich, the feeling like I was right there. Those are the first impressions I got from the sound. And as a comparison, my reference amp for the last several months has been the Audio GD Master 9, and I love that amp. And I have to say that this amp, the Milo, really surprised me. There's not a huge difference, but there is a noticeable difference. And I would say just the musical, natural sounding. Everything just sounds so real, and it just sounds the way it should. I mean, especially acoustic instruments, female voices more than anything. So that is the first thing that really jumped out at me about the sound of this amp. Another thing is, first of all, this thing has unlimited power. Wells Audio rates this amp at 12 watts per channel at 32 ohms and gives a distortion reading at that power of 0.006% distortion. And as far as I know, Wells Audio is the only company out there giving you distortion levels at full power. Most companies will tell you, including Audio GD, will tell you what the maximum power output of the amp is, but they don't say what distortion level that is, and who knows what it is. It could be 1%, it might be 5%, it might even be 10% distortion, which means it's completely unusable at that power. Where Wells Audio is telling you that this thing puts out 12 watts per channel into 32 ohms at 0.006% distortion. So this may very well be the most powerful, clean power of any headphone amp out there, other than, Wells Audio's higher end amps that they sell. As far as the sound, I would say the tone balance is very natural. Maybe just slightly on the warm side of natural or neutral. I can't really say for sure. It's slightly warmer than my Audio GD. So I can't really tell you if the Wells is the one that's neutral, and that would make the Audio GD slightly colder than neutral, or if the Audio GD is neutral and would make the Milo slightly on the warm side of neutral. Anyway, so it's real close to neutral, but just slightly a little bit warmer than the Master 9. The bass is very solid, has very good impact and very good control. The extension is very good on both ends, into the deepest sub bass all the way up to the treble as high as I can hear it. The Soundstage is wide and deep, and it has a very three-dimensional sound. And the primary headphone that I used to do most of my listening is the Kennerton's Roar, and which has a very three-dimensional sound itself, and the Milo just adds to that, just this feeling of being surrounded by music, and I just love it. I can't get enough of it. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into the sound tonight. I'm going to take a couple more weeks listening and, really dig in deep and try several different headphones and see, give you a more detailed impression of the sound. Is there any problems with the amp? I'd say no problems at all. I love the amp so far. Of course, nothing is perfect. No headphone is perfect. No headphone amp is perfect. They don't all have the same features. They're not all built for the same purpose. First of all, this headphone amp is just a headphone amp. It's not a preamp. And then another thing, it only has one input. So, but if that is all you need, if you're just looking for a high quality headphone amp and don't need the preamp or multiple inputs, that's not really an issue. The only thing that I would say this amp isn't perfect for is, because this amp is massively powerful, you end up with a little bit of a trade-off. This thing is made for high demand headphones that need a lot of power. Inefficient, hard to drive headphones, this amp is outstanding. Okay, but because of that, it's not ideal for IEMs or a real super efficient headphone. As far as the headphones I used 3 different Hi-Fi Man headphones, the Sundara, the HE500, and the HE560. The 560 is very hard to drive, and I thought that the Master 9 was the first headphone amp to bring out the best of that headphone, and I've got to say, I think this one took it even further. I think the Milo took the HE560 even a little bit further than the Master 9. But anyway, with any of the three Hi-Fi Man headphones and my Kennerton Thrower, which is a medium efficiency, it's more efficient than any of the Hi-Fi Mans. With any of those four headphones, this amp is dead silent. No background noise at all, cannot detect the noise floor in the slightest bit under any circumstances. Okay, I have the Kennerton Valley, which is quite I would say a very efficient headphone. It's it's 32 ohms and rated at 100 decibels at 1 milliwatt, which is exactly the same as the Grotto SR80E. They're both very efficient, and with those two, if I have the music off, if I put my CD on pause, I can barely detect a little bit of hiss. Just slightly, and it's not enough to really be an issue. As soon as any music is playing at all, I can't hear it. The only time I can pick it up is in between songs. If I really pay attention, I can pick up a tiny bit of hiss in the background. And those are pretty efficient headphones. I tried a set of Hi-Fi Man IEMs, the RE400s, and the hiss was a little bit more noticeable. I could hear it in between songs, and if there was a really quiet part of the song, or like at the end, if the song fades out to nothing, the last couple seconds, I could pick up a little bit of hiss. So it's not ideal for IEMs. It could be used with them, but it's just, with that kind of power, it's just not really built for IEMs or super efficient headphones. The most efficient headphone I have is a Sony DJ headphone, the MDR V700. That's rated at first of all, I think it's a 24 ohm headphone, and it's rated at 112 decibels at 1 milliwatt. It's just outrageously efficient, probably more so than most IEMs. And that, there's a fair amount of hiss, and it's not really usable. So anyway, the amp thrives on hard-to-drive headphones. It will drive anything. I can't imagine any headphone not getting enough power. Even the Hi-Fi Man HE6, the Susvara, the Abyss Phi. I would say any of those, you would never be short on power with this amp. So that is what this amp is built for. And the harder to drive the headphone is, the more this amp really stands out and shines. That, and like I said, it's just a musical, organic, non-fatiguing sound. I've noticed that I can listen to this quite a bit longer than I can listen to my Audio GD without feeling fatigued. And the Audio GD, it's extremely detailed, and this amp, it doesn't lack any detail. The detail is there. It's just not quite, the upper mid-range and treble is just not quite as much in your face as the Audio GD. It just kind of like female vocals and pianos. It gives it kind of takes the edge off and makes it sound, like I said, just more real. But because of that, it's not fatiguing, because a combination of a very detailed amp and a very detailed headphone like the Kennerton Thrower can actually, it sounds great, but it could become fatiguing after a while. And without giving up any detail or resolution, I would say that the Milo, just like I said, it's just more of a real sound, and your brain doesn't have to work as hard to process it. And I personally can just listen to it, for quite a bit longer without that feeling of, needing a break from it. So, and speaking of that feeling, there was a discussion on my headphone group, the Headphone Experience, a few weeks ago. And someone brought up, and I've experienced this myself quite often. And what it is this feeling that it's maybe happens maybe 1 out of every 10 times I listen to my headphones. And I listen every day, usually every night before I go to sleep. And what happens is every once in a while, and I know a lot of other people experience this, is that just everything comes together, everything just sounds perfect, and you can't imagine how it could sound any better. And it just sounds so good that you just want to listen to it. You don't want to quit, like I'll be listening to it before I go to sleep. And I'll know I've got to get up in 5 or 6 hours and that I should turn my headphones off and go to sleep. And once in a while, I just get that feeling that it just sounds so good that you don't want to turn it off. You don't want to put it away. I've even sometimes listened to the same CD, all the way through a couple times in a row just because it sounds so good. And I will be honest, even though I get that feeling quite a bit with my Master 9, I would say I never got that feeling as often as I have with the combination of the Milo and the Kennerton Roars. I just, it's happened several times, or 2 or 3 times at least, just in the last week. I was listening to a Cranberries CD. I think, what's the name of it? It's one of the earlier ones. I can't think of the name right now. Anyway, I listened to the whole thing 2 times. All the way through. And the other night I was listening to Sarah McLachlan, Stumbling Towards Ecstasy, and which is a very well recorded CD in my opinion. And it was the same thing. I just didn't want to stop. I went all the way through the CD and started over and listened to it again. So I am getting that feeling of just, just everything coming together and being perfect, more so with this amp than even my Master 9. So, so far I'm very impressed, but I'm going to get back to you in a couple weeks. Hopefully Wells Audio will let me hang on to this for a little while and do some more listening and dive a little deeper into the sound. But anyway, so far no complaints. Very happy with it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and if this video helped you in any way, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.